Welcome to another episode of The Jersey Boys.
The boys are back.
The boys are back in town.
How you doing, bud?
Doing it right. You?
Doing all right.
Yeah.
If the Yankees win tonight, I'll be doing great. Okay? And then I'll be doing fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Right?
To some degree, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Some things change, when it comes to stuff like that.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Listen, I don't own the team or anything like that, so really doesn't change my life if
Yeah,
they
well,
win or
Steinbrenner,
lose.
he bought them back in, 74 was it? Or 73 for $10 million? It wasn't even his own money.
Imagine that. What do you think they're worth today?
What is it, $1 billion?
I mean,
it's like
gotta be. They're a
billion?
cash register, bro.
Yeah, I don't know. Look it up.
We could always look
on
it up.
Google. I know
They're
it's
worth
a
a
lot.
lot.
A lot of money.
Listen, they're getting ready to write a big check, too, if you're going to keep Aaron Judge. So
Yeah, well, he deserves it.
he does.
Wow.
He does. Hey, guys. How y'all doing out there? How y'all doing?
Whoa!
How y'all
This
doing?
guy. I just told my kids none of that using that
Y'all
stuff.
Y'all.
And y'all do it because
Hey,
I don't know.
It's like commonplace now. Yeah. Right? It's weird. Listen,
The South is coming in attacking
they
up
are.
here. What is this?
What you will not hear me say is orange.
Yeah.
I
okay.
can't. That bothers me more than anything else.
Orange.
Florida. That's a whole nother animal.
Orange. Florida.
That's it.
There you go. Orange and
Florida.
Florida.
Coffee.
Coffee talk. Here we are. Coffee talk. Linda Richmond right here.
So,
Anyway.
guys, thanks for tuning in, checking us out wherever you're checking us out.
Yes.
Right? Podbean, Apple Podcasts, thejerseyboys.com. And, of course, now, YouTube, working our channel. So if you're checking us out on YouTube, give it a like. More importantly, please hit the subscribe button. Help us get as many followers as possible so that we can do more for you and with you.
That's right.
Right?
That's
It's that
right.
simple.
On the
That's
road to
simple.
getting to 1,000, right? That's the initial.
Well, we just
got to get
started.
to 1,000. Let's put that down, right? Starting today, we got to get to 1,000. That's the first step. Get to 1,000.
So we'll do us. You do you.
That's right.
I need you to hit the subscribe button.
Talking to you.
All right? Very simple. So on the last episode, guys, you heard us talk about, a very important date on July 19, 2021, where Marianne had suffered an aneurysm. And, Joe, when we left off, it was her direct response where you told her to move her toes. Yeah. And she did. Mm-hmm. So I'd like us to pick back up right there. So that day she moved her toes, and everybody was going crazy, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it was wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
It was expected. I mean, we believed. So the expectation was like, God is doing some amazing things right now. The impact that this is having on people that are in the hospital, other families, the nurses, doctors, just witnessing what's happening. This is a special time. God is moving in this hospital. And because of this situation, people's lives are being changed for the better because of they're seeing God at work and God's people are showing up. So I was very, very confident that she was going to pull through this. So when I'm speaking with her and asking her, move your toes, and she's doing it on command, I'm like, I don't care what the doctors say. And again, in their defense, they're very guarded. They're trying to be careful as far as how they don't want to show too much emotion. Like, oh, this is great, fantastic, she's healed. They got to be very careful. But as a believer, as a follower of Christ, I'm like, I know God still does miracles. I know God can still heal, and I believe He's going to heal her, and He's going to do it in such a way that this story is going to be told for a long time to come, and it's going to change a lot of people's lives. So yeah, it was, those days of being there and just it was very draining. I mean, there were plenty of nights that I didn't sleep, and that's another fortunate thing. Even the first few days, because of the COVID, what's the word? It wasn't like this hiatus almost of COVID where they were allowing you to do pretty much what you did before, pre-COVID. So I actually even slept over a few nights in the hospital. And just, I was.
You stayed over.
They weren't going to
really, you didn't really sleep
No,
much
yeah,
either.
no. I didn't sleep.
I
mean,
know.
because they were coming in on a regular basis to test different things, change her gown. I was up. I mean, you can't sleep. I mean, maybe you close your eyes for 15, 20 minutes, and then you hear like a beep, like on the machine. Like, what is that? What is that? I'm going out to the desk. My wife, something's going on. Can you please check on her? For those 19 days, I mean, honestly, how many hours did I sleep? Not many. No. Not many. And there was plenty of nights that I did come home, and we had, people here at the house, as you know, and
it was every night, Joe.
Yeah, every night.
It was every night. We left the hospital, we came here.
Yeah. And then I would just, there were nights I would just go out and just walk around the streets just praying and just feeling, again, that God is going to do something here. And that's kind of, where it was. So
so she wiggles her toes.
Yeah, she wiggles her toes, yeah.
And then there was a change after that, right? So, believing, expecting, praying nonstop. But then there was a change with, they did a trach.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
why'd they do that?
Because at a certain point, and I thought that was a positive thing too, because as far as infection with the tube down her throat, they rather feed through they do a tracheotomy. And
what about feeding? How does that go through the same tube?
They did a feeding. They did they did a tube in her stomach, in her stomach for feeding purposes.
Okay.
So now instead of everything going through this tube, right now they have the feeding, going directly into her stomach. And then they have, for the breathing through her neck. And they do that because the more you have that tube down the throat, it increases the chances of infection and things like that. And there's some other reasons why, too, that I don't remember. But the bottom line is that those things, in my eyes, and from what I recall being told, they were positive things. So now I'm thinking, okay, she's starting to move her toes. She no longer has the tube down her throat. Things are starting to look better. I'm just waiting for her to open her eyes.
Right.
I'm just waiting for her to open her eyes and saying, "Where am I?" Now, without that tube down her throat, she could actually maybe even say something. Mm-hmm. And those times that I was there, and the few times that I maybe dozed off, I was praying that I would be woken, with her voice saying, "Where am I? What's going on?" And I. But to be honest with you, during the day, having that room without more than 5 or 6 people in it was, what are you talking about? There was constantly people in that room, again, which is unheard of. But, that's kind of what was going on at that time.
Okay. All right. So we got a feeding tube. We got the trach.
Yeah.
We're still hoping and believing. And I want to say and definitely correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say it was probably right around the day 14 or day 15 where, they started to say, hey, listen, we don't think this is going in the right direction.
Yeah, it was actually the day after Joe Pellegrino was in, and he experienced her moving her toes on command, and it was on a Monday, and it was August 6th. I'm sorry, no, August 2nd. August 2nd. That Monday, Joe Pellegrino was there, and I was like, "This is great," and praise God, she's really doing better. And we told the doctors about it, and they just kind of oh, okay, yep, yeah, almost like they were like
they poo-poo it.
Yeah, if that makes you feel good, great. They were not gonna be like high-fiving us, nothing like that at all. And then I remember the next day, Tuesday morning, I guess it was August 3rd, Tuesday morning, because the 7th was was Saturday. So it was August 3rd, that Tuesday morning. I remember,
Studio,
yeah. noise. Finn was not in the hospital, although we should have brought him in. We could have said he was a service dog somehow and got him in there.
I was just about to say,
Yeah.
so if anyone's watching or listening, and they're like, wait a minute, what
Yeah.
are they talking about? What just happened, right?
We have our dog,
Finn Doodle is upstairs, just gave a little bark, little shout out.
Yeah, a little shout out.
It's
You
what
know, he
happens
wants to
with
be
the home
remembered.
studio.
But that's
You're
okay.
welcome.
That's okay.
Okay.
We're real. The Jersey
good.
boys are very real.
Back on track.
So, anyway, so that Tuesday morning, I got there, and again, I was feeling pretty good. And I remember seeing, when I was in her room, I looked down the hallway, and I'd always see a group of doctors going from room to room, doing their rounds.
Yeah.
And I did not like when they came in. I just didn't, because they had the students, the residents, and they were always like doing training, like talking about this is what's going on, this is what's going on. They were talking all these medical terms, and I just didn't feel comfortable because they didn't have this, like, I don't want to say they were cold, but they were very medical, just
Sure.
just the way they
And
carried
medical kind of comes with a sense of that cold.
they're not
right?
going to be like, hey, how you doing? How's she doing? And hugging you. They're not like, and they're like, they seem they're looking for things to find wrong.
Right.
So, anyway,
It's all right.
so they came in, and I remember them saying it was like 8:30 in the morning, maybe 9, and I remember them saying that they were going to be doing a few tests that day. Now, looking back on it, if I would have known that one of the 3 tests that they were going to do was kind of the end-all, be-all.
Yeah.
If this comes back and we find that there's no brain activity, that's it. We're done. I didn't know that. If I would have known that, I would have pushed back and say, do not do this test right now. Do not do this test. I want her to have more days before you do any of these tests. But they came in and said, hey, we're going to do a couple of these tests. And, I didn't know. They didn't really explain to me everything that they were going to be doing.
Right. 2
of the tests I knew because I watched them do it. They pinch her upper body to see if she flinches. They pinch her lower body to see if her legs move. And that particular day, she wasn't that responsive.
Right.
The day before with Joe Pellegrino there, she was very responsive. And I'm like, all right, that doesn't seem good. And then they opened up her eyes and they put the flashlight, the light in her eye to see if her pupils would react to any light. And that didn't go so well. So I'm like, oh, this is not great. And then they took her out of the room and she was gone for, an hour or so. And then they brought her back in and didn't hear anything until about 8 o'clock that night. The one doctor, he said, can I, meet with you in the conference room and any family that you want to have come in. And when he said that, that was, again, concerning. And that's when he revealed, hey, listen, we did these 3 tests today. And the last test that we did, I believe they put like some kind of like dye into her brain.
Yep.
And they did the scan to see if there was any brain activity. And he said that when we did this test, there was really no brain activity to speak of. So I said, well, what does that mean? And he goes, well, she's brain dead, clinically brain dead. And I said, well, what do you mean? Where do we go from here? And he goes, well, there's nothing more we can do. And, and I was just so taken back by that because, again, if I would have known that they were doing like this test, that if it came back the way it did, then, hey, we're pulling the plug. That's it. We're done.
Yeah.
I would have fought for more time. And I even tried to after the fact.
I was going to say, you did fight for more time.
I did.
You did a great job of that, hoping for that last-minute miracle if you can get it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just with those guys, though, right? It was with the organ donors.
Well, yeah, once the doctors declare that, first of all, in the state of New Jersey, then there's nothing you can do. I mean, that's it. They've declared her brain dead. They're finished. They're just going to give you a little bit of time, to say your goodbyes, and then they're going to take her off. But at that time, they also reach out to, the donors to see if we're willing to, donate any of her organs. And believe me, Marianne would have no problem doing that. I just really felt in my heart of hearts that if we were to do that, then were basically saying that she's not going to be healed.
Right.
And, you go ahead and take what you want. And
Yep.
I don't believe she would have had a problem with that. And I struggle with that too, because, a part of me, you see some of those commercials on TV and those shows on TV where you see like a family member, lost a son or something like that in a car accident. And then one of their heart is donated to some guy who needed a heart transplant. And then that family comes together and they listen to the heartbeat. Things like that I thought about, but I'm like, what? I really believe that God is going to heal her this side of heaven. So, no, I want to hold off on that.
It also became a finite thing, because the minute you said yes to them, you knew there was a definitive amount of time.
Right.
Because they had to take her organs before it was too late.
Right.
And it was almost like, I remember, you talked about it the whole time. Like, that was you conceding to saying, okay, it's over.
Right, and I didn't want that to be the case.
No.
So,
Hey, Joe, here I am smiling, right? We're in a serious conversation. I remember, and you even said it too. You would see them coming, and you would like dart out.
Oh yeah,
right?
I would try to go out the other way because I didn't want to have the conversation with them.
Yeah,
and I would just go down the hall to the other other way to get out of the room.
Joe's wearing like a long black coat. He's covering his head up.
Put on my scrubs, and put a mask on and pretend I'm going to surgery.
Yeah,
but yeah, man. I did not want to have a conversation with them. Like, hey, have you made a decision yet? I said, no, I'm running away. I said, no. And one of the things I used as a way to delay things was Marianne's parents, and I think two of her two sisters, Martha and Melanie, had left, I think, on Sunday, on like August 1st, to go home to Virginia.
Right.
So I said, well, when they made this decision, I said, well, her family's down in Virginia. I have to get them back up here. And I said that there's, they got to get back up here. Her parents are elderly, yada, 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 all that stuff. So I was trying to buy time. I was trying to buy time. And I kept on praying, God, please, we're running out of time. Please heal her. And, I remember that Friday, the donors came in again. It was like 8 o'clock that night. And they're like, have you made a decision? I said, I need a little bit more time, and again, they're like, okay. Actually, it was Thursday night. They said, okay, we could wait until tomorrow. So now Friday comes, and now like her family was back in town. So now it's like, all right, what do I do? And I remember that Friday night, I knew that a decision had to be made the next day. They weren't going to give me any more time. Her family was in town. She was basically, declared brain dead on that Tuesday, the 3rd. So here we are, it's approaching, it's Friday. It's going to be Saturday, tomorrow morning. And I remember being up all night, Friday night, walking in my neighborhood, just praying the entire night. God, this is it. A decision has to be made. They had said that, 1:30 would be the time.
Okay.
So I, we got to the hospital that morning, and as soon as I walked in to the waiting room for the ICU unit, I remember seeing Shirley, the nurse, and I remember her telling me, Joe, I know what's happening today. You need to go get away with God.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, you're right. You're right. And she goes, it's in God's hands, and, his will be done. And I remember going in to see Marianne for a few minutes before everybody got there. And then I remember going down to the courtyard in the middle of the hospital, outside where the little, that little courtyard area was.
Absolutely. Yep.
Where the little store was, the
cafe,
deli, cafe.
thing,
yeah. And I remember, so this is in Patterson, so it's in the summer, you can hear horns beeping, it's the city, and I remember sitting on this little bench in this little garden area of this courtyard, and I felt the sun on my face, and then all of a sudden it got quiet. It got quiet like it is right now.
Mm.
So all those city noises just kind of went away. And I just remember feeling the sun on my face. And the first voice I heard was my dad's. who had passed, 4 years earlier. And my dad's life verse is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Jesus and me. Right? And he will direct your steps. And I just remember that my dad just saying, trust in the Lord, trust in the Lord. He's going to direct you. He has this all worked out. And then very shortly after that, I heard Marianne's voice. And leading up to this whole thing, that whole year, and actually even a little before that, Marianne loved that song, The Blessing, by Kari Jobe.
Yep.
The Blessing. And that was taken from Numbers 6, 24 through 26.
Yes.
Lord bless you, Lord keep you. And Marianne, even on the last letter that she sent me, had that verse.
Yeah.
Anybody that she wrote to, that last 12 months of her life, she put in that Numbers 6, 24 through 26. By the way, I have that written here.
That's a tattoo.
One of my tattoos. And I got Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 here. Numbers 6, 24 through 26. I got Marianne and I's anniversary, which is coming up. It'll be 30 years. And her last words to me, tattooed on my arm.
Which were?
Love always, Marianne.
Oh, in that letter.
Yep, in that letter. So I actually took that and had that this is her actual handwriting and everything, and tattooed onto my arm. And but I remember sitting there and just hearing her voice quoting that verse, and God just had spoken to me, basically saying, I'm in control. Whatever happens, everything is going to be okay.
Right.
So I had this peace, after having that time with God. And I remember going up into a room and spending some time with her. And then the kids showed up, and, a few other people that showed up that day and came in to visit. But I remember looking at the clock, knowing that at 1:30, a little bit after 1, between 1:15 and 1:30, they were going to be making that decision to pull the plug. And there was nothing I could do about it. So I remember spending a lot of time with her, obviously, people coming in, the kids coming in. And then at about, 1:10, I told the kids, all right, it's time, we have to have you step out. And a lot of people had mentioned to me that, Joe, you may not want to be in the room when they do this. And I was
I was one of them. Remember
yeah, I
that?
know. Yeah. And
I was worried for you.
a few people did. And again, people like yourself that, I highly respect and I love. But I just felt like, you know what? I've been with her for the last 30 plus years, through thick and thin. I'm not gonna leave her by herself. And I'm
so glad you made that.
Yeah,
decision,
no,
bro.
and it was something that, again, I had to be there. So the only other person that was going to be in the room was my cousin Bill, who is a pastor, and he's also a hospice pastor, so he's been experienced with this. And I remember, when the kids left, and it was just Bill and I had put on The Blessing, the song The Blessing, cranked it up on my little speaker, and Bill prayed, and I remember the nurses coming in and starting to unplug everything. And I remember just, I cradled her. I put my arms underneath her as best I could in the hospital bed, and I was just talking to her the entire time and praying and kissing her. And I said, all right, Marianne, now's your time. You're gonna wake up. You're gonna wake up. And I just remember like looking at the monitor and just, it's
surreal.
The reality, it's surreal, and just the reality of what's taken place to know that, she's basically dying in my arms.
Yeah.
And
to your point, when it's time to go, You made sure you were there.
Yeah, I mean, I
So
that's
no better
exactly
place.
why I wanted to be the last person with her. I wanted to be holding her. But again, I thought she was gonna. I was just waiting for her to open her eyes, and she held on. I mean, even my cousin said, he goes, a lot of times when they pull the plugs, they go quick.
Right.
And she lasted a while, and maybe a little less than 2 minutes. But I just remember, you just still right to the very last second that all right, she's going to pull through this.
Yeah.
I really did, and my worst day was her greatest day.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Well, we lost her on this earth. God, he did heal her, as he will all of us who have accepted Christ. That no matter what happens, God does heal. And he answered the prayer. She was healed, but she was healed in heaven.
Right.
And her greatest day is, those of us who have Christ in us, you accept Jesus, right? We know John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him will not perish but have everlasting life. When we believe that and we accept that gift of God from Jesus, we will be in heaven. And when that moment happens, just like when Jesus was on the cross, he said to the one thief, today you will be with me in paradise. So when Marianne stopped breathing and her heart stopped beating, she was in paradise just like that.
Right.
So she was entering into a place of paradise. She was with Jesus. She was with all of her family and friends that have gone before her. That's the greatest moment. I mean, that's what we long for. But for us who are here, it's like we're like, I can look back now and say, yeah, that's her greatest moment, her greatest time. But the sadness of losing her and the shock of this is real. This is real. She is, and then having her lay there in the bed, and so many came in afterwards, and we just praised God and we sang around her bed, and
That was incredible.
yeah. But and that's another thing that could add to the video, the YouTube, just put a little bit of that in there, that, singing around her bed. And I believe that she saw that. I think as she was leaving and entering into heaven, I think she saw her family and loved ones around her. And then she entered into heaven, and that's her greatest day. And, it was shock. And, we could even talk at some point, I don't know, even about Lori. Lori was having a vision of what she witnessed about Marianne, being with Jesus, and Jesus showing her, I believe, what was to come.
Yeah.
And sitting in front of that cabin, which is a whole other story.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
About,
absolutely.
her following Jesus into heaven, and Jesus, I believe, reassuring her of what was to come as a result of this. And her healing in heaven, how it was going to make a difference in the lives of so many people who were still here on earth. And I believe one day, we will get to heaven, and we're seeing the impact already. We're seeing the fruits of this for those 19 days and what happened to her. We're seeing it already, but I think we won't understand and know the full magnitude of it until we're in heaven. And I picture Marianne in heaven, because she's such a people person, and she's so warm, and she wants to be around people. I can picture her meeting and greeting people as they enter into heaven, and then people saying to her right off the bat, I'm here because my life was changed because of you.
Right.
And her not taking it like, wow, thanks, look what I did, but more so like, wow, God gave me this opportunity, and I was chosen to be used by the Lord. Mm-hmm. And there's a song by a guy named Ray Boltz, I think it is, right, Alex? Ray Boltz, Thank You, and it's a great song. Maybe we should add that in too, in the link. And also we want to do about brain aneurysm, the Brain Aneurysm Foundation. Talk about some of the statistics of brain aneurysms, which I didn't know anything about until this whole situation. But that song, Ray Boltz, Thank You, it talks about you don't know the lives that you've impacted sometimes until you get to heaven.
Right.
You know, and when my dad passed, you know, he was a school teacher, and so many people came to his funeral and to the wake, and they were like, you know, your dad changed my life. I'm like, wow, I didn't know that.
That's a legacy, right?
Yeah, that's a legacy that he left, and there's people's lives that have been changed. And Marianne, the same way. I mean, she's impacting so many for Christ, and I believe that, you know, people have told me, hey, you know, I'm praying now with my wife. I'm spending more time reading the Bible with my family. I'm praying with my kids. I've accepted the Lord. I've rededicated my life to the Lord. All these different things, and I think what will happen one day in heaven, we're going to meet those people. And I think that's one of the things that God will, you know, when he says, well done, good and faithful servant, right? Yeah. These are the fruits that he's going to show. These are the fruits. And then I think we're going to meet those people in heaven. Think about like Billy Graham, how many people, I mean, he's nonstop. I mean, people will be constantly coming up to him, you know, hey, you know, I listened to you, you know, I went to your crusade or whatever it was. And yeah, I mean, these people are going to let us know that their life was changed because of what they experienced and what they watched through us, through what we were dealing with. And Marianne, knowing Marianne, she's not going to say, well, give me all the glory. She's going to say, praise God. And she's going to point people to Christ and say it's all because of Jesus.
Yeah, she lived her entire life that way.
Yeah, I mean, she very selfless.
Yeah.
Very selfless. She loved being a wife. She loved being a mother. She loved being a friend to all people. I mean, she was always serving, always giving back. Never anything about herself. It was always, you know, what can I do to help other people? You know, never complaining, never.
I don't think I ever heard her complain.
Yeah. I mean, she wouldn't allow. Did she get frustrated sometimes, you know, with the things going on in this world? And was she sad sometimes? Absolutely. Did she get upset about certain things? Yeah, but she would not let anything affect her to the point to where something was going to steal her joy.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Happiness, sadness, those things can come and go. You know, happiness is just basically, I think it's taken from happenings. And, you know, whatever's happening to you at that particular moment, you can be happy for a short time, or you can be sad for a short time. But when you have joy, no matter what you're going through, like when Paul was in prison, you know, he still had joy.
Yeah.
You look at some of our, through like legacy-minded men, and some of our brothers and sisters in Africa who are part of Legacy, our legacy groups, they are joyful. They don't have a lot, and they have their happy days and their sad days, a lot of more sad days than happy days, but the joy, it's amazing. Yeah. So Marianne, no matter what we were going through, she never let Satan or what was going on steal her joy. I mean, when I lost my job of 24 years back in 2017, you wouldn't have known if you were around Marianne whether I just got promoted or if I just lost my job. She just would not allow that. You know, and I even remember, like, you know, hey, everybody's, get your real estate license. You know, you and Ronnie, you know, he's great. You know, you would be great at it. And I remember trying to get my real estate license and studying for it. And I remember failing the test and, you know, being in my office all discouraged. And, you know, again, Marianne was just encouraging.
That was her biggest gift, her greatest gift, right?
Encouraging and hospitality. I mean, just opening up her home. As you know,
she didn't have a choice. Joe would open up the door. 16 strangers would come in.
I'd say, yeah, we got 16 people coming to the house. And she'd go, oh, well, I didn't clean. I said, Marianne, who cares? I said,
we don't have any food. I'll be right back. 16 people in the house. Yeah. She's down the street getting food.
Yeah, walking in with the groceries. And just, that's how she was. I mean,
so much fun.
And you know, like on that scale, we always joke about that scale of, you know, spontaneous.
Spontaneity.
Spontaneity. Like, I'm like off the scales, you know?
Yeah, it's a scale of 1 to 10. Joe's like a 48.
Exactly. Like, you know, it could be like right now, you know, like, hey, you want to go into the city? Let's do it. All right, let's go. And Marianne would never be like, wow, are you kidding me? I can't go. I have to go to work tomorrow. She would just say, well, okay, let's go. She understood that she wanted to be there to support me, to love me, to support her kids, and do whatever she had to do just to serve others and make others feel loved. And, we called her the Disney princess because, again, the birds flew all over her, when she'd go out, squirrels come up to her. And, she just had that way about her. She was just this, she was full of the Holy Spirit. I mean, it just came out of her. Jesus came out of her. And, again, I would get mad at her sometimes. I'd say, Marianne, I said, can't you just get mad? I said, look what happened. I said, I just lost my job. I said, I can't pass this real estate license test. I can't do this. I can't do that. I was getting negative. I was getting frustrated. And she would just say, Joe, you need to spend some time with God. And she was constantly praying, for the kids, for other people, making food for other people. I remember, Lori and Marianne's friend Barbara, who had cancer.
Oh, yeah.
Marianne, would come home and she would make not only our meals, but she was making meals for Barbara as well. She had special diet. And I remember like 2 or 3 times a week, we'd run up to Barbara's house and bring her a box. This is during COVID. Bring her a box of food. And, and I think she passed, I think it was in March of 2021. And who would have known that, a few months later, Marianne would be joining her in heaven.
So let me ask you a question in closing. I know we went over today, but it was certainly a story worth going over on.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
My question for you is, and I know there's a ton. If there was one thing that you can tell people that you pulled from this experience, what would be the biggest, whether it be lesson or anything that you pulled from this experience that you would want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, that's tough. I mean,
I know.
Listen, life is short. Life is very short. I mean, even if you live to be 100 years old, life is still short even at 100. Eternity is forever. And, there's a reason when Jesus died on the cross and he gave us the opportunity to accept the free gift of salvation through his death on the cross. There were 2 thieves, one on each side of him. Mm-hmm. One accepted the gift that he was offering of salvation and eternity. One accepted and one rejected. So there weren't like 5 or 6 thieves. God did this specifically for a reason, to tell that story, that in life you could have 2 people and you share the gospel. One is going to accept, one is going to reject. Marianne accepted a long time ago when she was a young girl. And she would want, more so than anything, to let people know that she's in heaven. She is better than ever. She would love for all of us to be there. And those of us, I know the 3 of us right here for sure, are going to see her in heaven because we've accepted the gift of salvation. And the thing I've taken from this is that, you don't know what is going to happen the next second. If God is pulling on your heart, and you got something from this today, like, wow, I want to know more about who this Jesus is, then, reach out to us. You can message us and we'd be happy to speak to you. But the thing I pulled from this is that life is very short. Eternity is forever. Where do you want to spend eternity? And it doesn't matter how good you are on this earth. Marianne was the best of the best. But if she didn't have Christ in her heart, she would not be in heaven. Mm-hmm. Because if she didn't accept Jesus Christ as her Lord and personal Savior, she doesn't get a free pass just because she was good. And again, there was nobody better than her. She was such a good person. But because she accepted Christ, that is the difference. And what I took from this is that there is purpose behind the pain. Mm-hmm. And all the pain that we've experienced and continue to experience, there's purpose. And the Lord has given me and my family, and I hope all of us, a platform now to share Marianne's legacy. But her legacy and she'll be the first one to tell you, she doesn't want to be remembered as somebody who was all about being good and serving other people. That's all nice. That's all byproducts. What she wants to be known as is a child of the King, child of God, and that she wants to be known that she is the daughter of the King, and that you too can be a child of God by accepting Christ as your Lord and personal Savior. And I can't wait to the day to be in heaven, to be reunited with her and my dad and so many family and friends that have gone before, and to be in the presence of God and Jesus, and to be there for all eternity. And I've learned that you might think this can't happen to you, like you can't have a brain aneurysm. I didn't know that much about brain aneurysms, but again, Alex, we'll have that in the link. Go to the Brain Aneurysm Foundation and learn more about brain aneurysms. And they happen, like in 1 in 5 people could be walking around with an aneurysm that could potentially, the vessel could burst. You could have an aneurysm. But it could happen. It happened to Marianne. It could happen to any of us. We can go outside right now and get into a car accident or suffer some kind of, getting a diagnosis of cancer. The thing I take away is don't put off today. What is it saying? Don't put off tomorrow what can be done today.
Don't put off tomorrow what can be done today, yeah.
Accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and personal Savior. That's my takeaway. And
better
your life
takeaway.
will change forever. And that doesn't mean it gets better all the time, because believe me, there's a lot of things I wish could be different in my life.
Of course.
But I have a purpose, and my purpose is to direct people to Christ through every platform, including the Jersey Boys.
It's fabulous.
And that's the legacy that I want to be known for as well, that I was, somebody who loved the Lord, loved people, and I experienced God's people more so in those 19 days than I ever did in my entire life. And you guys, Alex and Ronnie and so many of our family and friends, it's something I can never thank you guys enough for all that you guys have done and continue to do, all the blessings and just the support and love. And I look forward to all of us being in heaven one day with Marianne and just sitting down and fellowshipping. So that's it.
And we will.
We will.
And we will.
We will.
So, Joe.
Yeah.
This is why we were away.
Yeah.
Right? This is the story that we had to tell. This is why the Jersey Boys took a break, and I'm sure now they understand. So, guys, again, we know it was a long one, but it was certainly well worth telling. Yep. So, Joe, this concludes part 2 of the Marianne story. So now when we come back on the next show, we're going to lift the spirits a little bit, right?
Yeah.
We're going to lift the spirits. The Jersey Boys, the guys that you remember from previous episodes, previous seasons, we'll be back.
Because Marianne, we want that. Marianne,
yes.
She was part of the Jersey Boys. She loved the show. I mean, Amy and Lori, those 3 ladies, our wives, biggest fans of the Jersey Boys.
Yep.
Loved it. And they loved hearing the stories and all the funny things that we did. So
they will continue.
And that's what she would want.
They will continue.
Yep.
So this concludes part 2 of the Marianne story. And for that I say, I'm Ronnie A.
And I'm Joey the Rash.
I'm out.
Ciao.